Critics, both inside and outside Israel, have condemned an Israeli scheme to move hundreds of thousands of already displaced Palestinians to a so-called humanitarian city in Gaza. Some opposition critics have likened it to a concentration camp and said it could lead to ethnic cleansing. The idea was floated by Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz earlier this month. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened ministers and defense officials to discuss it late on Sunday. Katz said about 600,000 people would be moved to the new encampment, to be built in southern Gaza abutting the Egyptian border, where Israeli forces have gained control. Like much of Gaza, that area now lies in ruins. Katz was quoted as saying that the people who chose to move there would not be free to leave again. Opposition leader Yair Lapid said on Monday the plan was dangerous and would not materialize. It is unclear whether a strategy such as the humanitarian city might win the support of US President Donald Trump. Earlier this month, Reuters saw a $2 billion proposal to build large-scale camps called humanitarian transit areas inside and possibly outside Gaza to house the Palestinian population. It bore the name of the US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, and was submitted to the Trump administration. It said the vision was replacing Hamas's control over the population in Gaza. The White House declined to comment on the proposal. The GHF currently runs aid distribution sites in Gaza using private logistics firms.
674 of them were killed in the vicinity of GHF sites.
The United Nations on Tuesday said that by its count, some 875 Palestinians had been killed attempting to get food over the past 6 weeks or so, most of them near GHF sites. Trump has previously suggested the US could take control of Gaza, and its population would be resettled in other countries such as Jordan and Egypt, an idea those countries rejected. Asked about concerns the relocations proposed by Katz would be forced, and that the new zone would serve as a transit camp with the ultimate aim of expelling Palestinians from Gaza, an Israeli military official said that is not our policy. Planning was only in an initial phase, the military source said, and the goal was to help Palestinians who do not want to live under Hamas rule. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the UN firmly stood against any plan that involves forced displacement of civilians in Gaza or forces them to make impossible choices.
The administration of United States President Donald Trump has called on Israel to probe the killing of 20-year-old American citizen Sayfullah Musallet, who was beaten to death by settlers in the occupied West Bank, calling the incident a terrorist act. Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, said on Tuesday that he asked Israel to aggressively investigate the killing of the Florida-born Musallet, who was visiting family when he was attacked in the Palestinian town of Sinjil. Huckabee's strongly worded post marks a rare critical stance towards Israel by the U.S. envoy, a staunch Israel supporter, who has previously said, "There's really no such thing as a Palestinian." But the U.S. ambassador's statement stops short of backing the Musallet family's demand for Washington to launch its own probe into the killing. Critics say Israel rarely holds its settlers or soldiers accountable for abuses against Palestinians. Musallet was the 9th U.S. citizen to be killed by Israel since 2022. None of the previous cases has led to criminal charges. The Institute for Middle East Understanding, your MEU policy project, said Israel should not be trusted to investigate the extremist settlers it enables at every turn, renewing calls for an independent U.S. probe. Another Palestinian, identified by health officials as Mohammed Shalabi, was shot dead by settlers during the same attack that killed Musallet on Friday.
The British chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court was warned in May that if arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant were not withdrawn, he and the ICC would be destroyed. The warning was delivered to Karim Khan by Nicholas Kaufman, a British-Israeli defense lawyer at the court, who told Khan he had spoken to Netanyahu's legal advisor and, according to a note of the meeting lodged on file at the ICC and seen by Middle East Eye, was authorized to make him a proposal that would allow Khan to climb down the tree. He told Khan to apply to the court to reclassify the warrants and underlying information as confidential. This, it was suggested, would allow Israel to access the details of the allegations, which it could not do at the time, and challenge them in private, without the outcome being made public. But Kaufman warned that if it emerged the chief prosecutor was applying for more arrest warrants for far-right ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich over their promotion of illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, then all options would be off the table. Kaufman told Khan, "They will destroy you and they will destroy the court." Khan and his wife, who also attended the meeting, both understood this to be a threat, according to the note of the meeting seen by me. Kaufman told me, "I do not deny that I told Mr. Khan that he should be looking for a way to extricate himself from his errors. I am not authorized to make any proposals on behalf of the Israeli government, nor did I." Kaufman said he had told Khan he feared that bringing more arrest warrants would encourage further U.S. sanctions that would risk destroying the court, and that adopting a policy like Samson and bringing the whole court down on him and its employees would not serve the purpose for which the court was conceived. Netanyahu's office did not respond to requests for comment.
One of Israel's ultra-Orthodox Jewish parties is quitting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition in a long-running dispute over a new military conscription bill. The move by the six United Torah Judaism, or UTJ, party members leaves Netanyahu's government with just a one-seat parliamentary majority in the Knesset, and that majority could disappear if UTJ's ultra-Orthodox ally Shas follows suit to quit the coalition. Ultra-Orthodox parties argue that the promise to exempt seminary students from Israel's mandatory military service was key to them joining the coalition in 2022. But last year, the Supreme Court ordered an end to the decades-long exemption. Speaking last month, former Knesset member Yossi Shein said this has become a heated topic, with the war in Gaza now the longest in the country's history since its founding in 1948.
People are shedding their blood, and many soldiers are fighting for months and months, while the ultra-Orthodox are completely avoiding service to the state while enjoying the money of the state.
One of the main issues at hand, Shein said, is that the ultra-Orthodox do not believe in the modern Israeli state and Zionism, the movement of self-determination for the Jews.
Many of them used to mourn during Israel Independence Day, but they've garnered lots of political power and have also managed to get into state institutions and receive lots of subsidies because of their political power as part of ruling coalition.
Shein, who is now a professor at Georgetown and Tel Aviv universities, said Netanyahu faces a tough choice, as it is critical for his own future that he maintains the coalition so he can stay in office.
He has to keep his power, otherwise he will collapse. So it's clear that Netanyahu is in a bind. He has to keep the ultra-Orthodox because they are the base of his support.
The UTJ lawmakers said their walkout would take effect after 48 hours, giving the Prime Minister 2 days to try and resolve the crisis. Failing that, Parliament goes on summer break at the end of July, which gives Netanyahu around 3 months to seek a solution before any loss of his majority could threaten his position.
Lebanon's largest reservoir is just a shadow of its former size, as water levels on the Litani River have fallen to historic lows. Experts describe it as the country's worst drought on record, threatening agriculture, electricity production and domestic water supplies. The Litani River National Authority said inflows to Lake Karaun during this year's wet season did not exceed 45 million cubic metres, a fraction of the 350 million cubic metres annual average. Sami Alawiye, the head of the authority, says the water available measured around 61 million cubic metres, but was unusable due to severe pollution. He said the entire country is affected.
In Lebanon, there are approximately 4,000 springs, including 300 springs that flow year-round. Nearly 90% of these have completely dried up. We're facing a water problem, a water scarcity problem, and pressure on water resources across all Lebanese territories and all water basins.
Lebanon's hydroelectric plants tied to the Litani Basin have been shut down, causing financial losses and intensifying electricity rationing. In the fertile area in the Bekaa Valley, farmers like Safa Issa were feeling the impact. He says he has never seen such scarcity of rain as of this year. The wells across the area have dried up. The strain has been compounded by erratic supply of electricity needed to run irrigation systems. The state utility has slashed supply in some areas from 20 hours a day to as little as 10. The Ministry of Energy and Water in Beirut said a national awareness campaign to reduce water consumption would be launched within 10 days. A study by the authority found climate warming and shifting weather patterns have contributed to more frequent dry seasons and higher temperatures, exacerbating soil moisture loss and reducing the recharging of groundwater reservoirs.
We will send them Patriots.
In a major policy shift, US President Donald Trump has announced a fresh wave of missiles and weaponry for Ukraine, including Patriot air defense missiles, which Ukraine urgently wants to fend off daily Russian missile and drone attacks.
He talks nice and then he bombs everybody in the evening.
Although the exact number of Patriots is unknown, Trump was clear that the European Union would pay for them. The Patriot, short for Phased Array Tracking Radar for Intercept on Target, is a mobile surface-to-air missile defense system. It was developed by Raytheon Technologies and is capable of intercepting aircraft, tactical ballistic, and cruise missiles. It's considered one of the most advanced air defense systems in the US arsenal and has been in service since the 1980s. A typical battery includes radar and control systems, a powerful unit, launchers, and support vehicles. According to Raytheon's website, it has built and delivered over 240 Patriot fire units, which have been shipped to 19 countries, including Germany, Japan, and Egypt. How it works depends on the type of interceptor used. The earlier PAC-2 interceptor uses the blast fragmentation warhead that detonates in the vicinity of a target, while the PAC-3 family of missiles uses more accurate technology that hits the target directly. It's not clear what kind of Patriot systems have been donated to Ukraine, but it's likely that Kyiv has at least some of the newer models. According to NATO, the system's radar has a range of over 93 miles, or 150 kilometers. A newly produced single Patriot battery costs more than $1 billion, which includes $400 million for the system and $690 million for the missiles in a battery. That's according to the Centre for Strategic and International Studies, which says Patriot interceptors are estimated to cost around $4 million per missile. In January, Axios reported that the US had transferred about 90 Patriot interceptors from Israel to Ukraine. Ukrainian officials say they're essential to defend key targets from Russia's escalating long-range attacks. But Russia says it sees the Patriots as a direct escalation, and as in the past, said supplying more would delay the chances of peace.
A culture of disrespect is poisoning community relations with Muslims. That's according to a new article by an academic expert. Examining cases like the Birmingham School's Trojan Horse episode and the debate around grooming gangs, Professor John Holmwood has concluded that false narratives about the integration of British Muslims are undermining community cohesion. Writing in the Middle East Eye, Holmwood, a professor of sociology at the University of Nottingham and an expert witness for the defence in the professional misconduct case brought against senior teachers in the Birmingham Trojan Horse affair, argues that deeper racist politics is at play in official attitudes to Muslims. In the Birmingham Trojan Horse affair, he says the government gave in to a moral panic about Muslim-led schools, which targeted the very teachers that had transformed the school from a failing to a first-class school. Of the debates around grooming gangs, Holmwood argues that the overall ethnicity of gangs is being misrepresented and that the focus on Muslim gangs obscures failure by government to properly fund child protection services. Holmwood claims children's services were also disrupted by the expansion of the Academy Schools programme. By 2014, around a quarter of primary schools and 3/4 of secondary schools had opted out of local authority control. He concludes his article by asking, if national politics are driven by common disrespect for British Muslims, what kind of future are we creating?
Donald Trump says more trade deals are coming soon.
We're working on probably 5 or 6. Of the 5 or 6, I'm not sure I really want to do them. You know, you want somebody that knows how to negotiate. But we'll probably have 2 or 3. You know, we insist on opening up the country, which is a big deal.
The US president spoke to reporters on Tuesday after agreeing one deal, this time with Indonesia. That will see the country's goods hit with a 19% tariff, down on the 32% that Trump had said the country would face from August 1st. US goods will be able to enter Indonesia free from all duties. Trump said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick were now keen to land more deals. But he said he was happy just sending out notices telling countries their rate.
I have to tell you, for the most part, I'm very happy with the letters. You know, the letters are a deal.
Trump said letters would soon be going out to many smaller countries, which would face a rate of a little over 10%. Meanwhile, the EU is preparing to retaliate against the 30% tariff threatened for its goods. It's drawn up a list of US imports worth about $84 billion that could be targeted.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum on Tuesday criticized US President Donald Trump's move to impose tariffs on Mexican tomatoes, which account for 2/3 of the tomatoes eaten in the US.
First, we disagree. Second, Mexican tomatoes will continue to be exported regardless. Third, I hope that next week we will be able to announce a series of actions that we will be taking with all the associations and all the tomato producers.
On Monday, the Trump administration announced a duty of about 17% on fresh tomatoes from Mexico. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said American farmers have been, quote, crushed by unfair trade practices that undercut pricing on tomatoes. But Mexico's Ministries of Economy and Agriculture called the tariff on tomatoes unfair and said it would hurt American consumers. The tomato tariff comes after Trump on Saturday threatened to impose a 30% tariff on imports from Mexico, starting on August 1st. On Tuesday, Sheinbaum said Mexico will take action if an agreement with the U.S. is not reached by that deadline.
Remember that we have a meeting scheduled for August 1st, and we hope to reach an agreement, including on the issue of tomatoes. If an agreement is not reached on August 1st, we will be informing of other actions.
Mexico's government said it would help local tomato producers seek a deal to suspend the tomato duty, as well as support them in seeking new international markets.
Mr. Daniel Graham, Mr. Adam Carruthers, I pass the same sentence in respect of you.
Two men who chopped down Britain's iconic Sycamore Gap tree were both sentenced to jail for more than 4 years on Tuesday. The much-loved landmark was estimated to be over 200 years old before it was cut down by the pair in September 2023. 39-year-old Daniel Graham and 32-year-old Adam Carruthers were found guilty last month of deliberately taking a chainsaw to the tree in the middle of the night. Prosecutors say this video shows the act, which they described as a moronic mission of sheer bravado. Authorities also say the pair filmed the crime on Graham's phone and bragged about it. Later, their friendship soured as public anger grew over their actions. Both men initially denied cutting the tree down. They later confessed to probation officers, with Carruthers' lawyer calling it drunken stupidity. However, Judge Christina Lambert rejected an account from Carruthers of significant drunkenness.
Mr. Carruthers, your account that you had had so much to drink that you had no memory of what you did that night is not plausible. The tree felling demonstrated skill. It required deliberate and coordinated actions by you. As Mr. Graham commented the next day, having seen a photograph of the stump, you didn't get a bad angle on the stump and the job seemed professional.
The dramatic silhouette of the Sycamore Gap tree featured in the 1991 movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It stood in a deep valley next to Hadrian's Wall, a 2,000-year-old Roman ruin, and was a popular spot for photos, hiking and marriage proposals. Cutting it down also damaged part of the wall, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There may yet be hope, however. Britain's National Trust charity, which manages the site, said last year it had found new growth in the tree's remaining stump.
This is one UK startup's solution to the world's growing data storage problem: holograms written on polymer tape.
We're using lasers to physically encode data into a polymer materials.
That's Charlie Gale, CEO and founder of HoloMem. He says his company has developed a low-energy replacement for traditional magnetic tapes, which have been used for the past 50 years to store data. With AI's big boom bringing on an unprecedented growth of digital data, Gale says magnetic tapes simply won't be able to keep up.
The existing magnetic tape format that we've been using for the last 50 years is very environmentally fragile. It requires constant thermal and humidity management. What's more, the data cartridge capacities that we're seeing simply can't keep up pace with our original data creation. So they're not fit for capacity, for life, or for cost.
The current industry standard cartridge format can store up to 30 terabytes of data. HoloMem is aiming for 200 terabytes on the same cassette.
Most all data storage technology is physically a single layer, so zeros and ones become ons and offs, lights and darks. We are stacking multiple data sets in the same piece of media, putting far more information in less space than ever before.
Gale hopes his tech will reduce growing energy demands on the data centers that keep today's digital world running. Data centers already account for 2.5% of global CO2 emissions. By 2030, it's predicted that roughly 8% of the world's energy will be needed to power and cool those centers.